PanicInspiration.com.
The last few months, I've done a couple of videos that got an interesting comment under both of them from different people. My review of the Marx Brothers Duck Soup and the 2012 Three Stooges reboot. And people said under it, two different people said under it, have you ever seen a movie called Brain Donors? I never even heard of this movie. But they said, check it out, because this is a movie made in 1992 that tries to emulate the Marx Brothers style of comedy and does a very good job of moving that style to the 1990s. Now, at the time, I was wrapping up the DVD collection. You know, I wasn't buying very many anymore. I was trying to put this to bed, right? But I looked for Brain Donors. Tried to rent it from the library. They didn't have it. No place was streaming it. So I said to myself, why not? And I bought Brain Donors. Bet you never seen this movie before. And actually, I found this was just released in the last 2-3 years on DVD for the first time. It's under the Warner Brothers Archive collection, which is what they oftentimes label the movies that they just grudgingly put out on DVD. Brain Donors is a night at the opera, basically, except moved to the world of ballet. And instead of Groucho, Harpo, and Chico, we have John Turturro, Bob Nelson, and Mel Smith, two comedians that I've never heard of otherwise. Obviously, John Turturro, he went on to have a pretty big career. Brain Donors, again, released in 1992 from the producers of The Naked Gun. This is not even pretending. This is just Night at the Opera. It just is. John Turturro plays the Groucho character and shamelessly does Groucho. Bob Nelson and Mel Smith, you know, doing the Chico role and doing the Harpo role. They put their own twist on it, you know, instead of Italian, he's a British actor, so he's just doing his regular British accent. And while in the Harpo role, that part is played mostly silent, he does speak. It's not played exactly the same, but pretty damn close. Of the three, I gotta say, I think John Turturro comes off the worst because he's just mimicking Groucho. He's doing a good job, don't get me wrong. He gets some laughs too, but he's just being Groucho. And so to me, that feels like it feels like I would have liked to have seen his spin on that type of character, the way that the other two do it. But that said, you know, the other two are doing basically the Chico and Harpo characters. Especially the Harpo character, because again, he's mostly silent. He's always pulling stuff out of his big coat and everything. You know, the plot, again, Night at the Opera, but with ballet, is John Turturro trying to woo this rich widow so that, and he wants to lead her ballet company that she was left to from her late husband. He's a swindler. He's and the very first time you see him, he's a lawyer. So you see him chasing an ambulance, literally on foot. And you get the young lovers, the girl who's in the ballet. Her boyfriend hasn't made it yet, and she's being pursued by the arrogant lead in the ballet, and it's the same plot. It's the exact same plot as A Night at the Opera. This isn't really a criticism, because I look at this movie as just basically being a remake. I wish that they had just credited, and they had to have cleared this, because there's no way they don't get sued if they didn't clear this with somebody to make sure, like, hey, we're remaking your movie. I don't know who they would have. I'm sure Warner Brothers probably owned the rights to A Night at the Opera or something, but I think somebody would have had to have been given credit somewhere. The movie, in the first 2/3, to me, it struggles. It got some laughs. Again, don't get me wrong, it did get some laughs. But it's such a blatant sort of Marx Brothers retread that, and I kind of stand by what I said in the Three Stooges review. You can't, certain types of comedy have a moment that they exist in. And once that moment is over, you can't really do that kind of comedy anymore. It doesn't diminish the movies that were made at that time. I always use Austin Powers as my example. Austin Powers is still funny. The second is funny. The third it has its moments. But by the time Mike Myers does The Love Guru, which is basically just Austin Powers, nobody wanted it anymore. Nobody. They were done. We're done with this kind of humor. This kind of humor is over, and it makes us cringe. Don't ever do this again. If he made Austin Powers 4 now, it would be an embarrassment. No matter how, it's the same guy who made the first one, the one we love, but we don't want to see it anymore. And that's how I felt kind of for the first 2/3 of Brain Donors. I just felt like this is very dated humor. They're putting their spin on it. It's a little bit raunchier, but it's still kind of, it's not really working for me for the most part. Then we get to the last third of the movie, where they, again, the Marx Brothers take over the opera. These guys take over the ballet, and they're out to destroy what was built up by their enemies, and to get these two young lovers to have their moment to be discovered. And God damn, it's funny. I laughed the entire way through. I laughed till I had tears coming down my face. And it was like finding a lost Marx Brothers movie. Because the gags were all original. They weren't like lifted from A Night at the Opera. These were written specifically for Brain Donors. And it was enchanting. It was so refreshing to see this kind of comedy again. And maybe it's because, my problem with later Marx Brothers movies, actually their first two as well, it's why I think Monkey Business, Horse Feathers, and Duck Soup are the three best Marx Brothers movies, is there's no romantic subplot. There's no young lovers that are there, and they get in the way. Even in A Night at the Opera, which is an amazing movie, the young lovers get in the way. You're not there to watch them. You're there to watch the Marx Brothers. And in those three specific Marx Brothers movies, you just get them. And the part that works best in A Night at the Opera is the ending, where the young lovers are sidelined, and it's now just the Marx Brothers creating mayhem. Once it gets to that in Brain Donors, the movie works, and it works fantastically. I would recommend this movie just for that last third. You might get something out of the first 2/3, you might not. You might find the first 2/3 to be a bit of a slog. But if you watch this movie, stick with it. Continue to watch it, because you get to that ending, and it's so funny. It made me laugh in a way that I haven't laughed at a movie in years. So Brain Donors, I'm going 2.5. I'm splitting it down the middle because I can't get it to 3. I don't think it's not a great movie. It's barely a good movie. What if that last third had been like the first 2/3? I wouldn't be recommending this movie. I am recommending it barely, and it's entirely, the whole 2.5 stars is entirely for the ending. So, do I say seek it out? Yes, I do. You should seek it out. This is a very funny movie if you stick with it.
Their worlds. Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,